Howdy guys, I'm Sadie Mae, and today we are going to be doing another carving project. This is going to be really fun, well at least I hope so. As I continue to learn more about wood carving and practicing with different textures and techniques, hopefully my carvings improve. So today let me show you what we're starting with. We are starting with this pine round board, and we're going to turn it into an art piece. We're going to include some holes, some texture, and just give it some really good character and life. So I found this pattern online, and I'm printed out a few pages. So I want to cut them out, glue them down on here, and then start with cutting out the circles over at the drill press.
So after cutting them out, I kind of spaced them out where I wanted them to, but it's so hot here in Arizona right now, and the swamp cooler is on full blast, so it was kind of difficult. I was trying to do a paper transfer using acetone to get the laser printed ink onto the board, but it was just drying too fast and wasn't really working that well. So I ended up just eyeballing the layout and drawing it by hand. I got 3 different size Forstner bits that I was going to use to help cut those holes, and as I was laying it out, I put a B for the big ones, an M for the medium, and an S for the small, so that I would just know which size to drill when I got to the drill press. Then at the drill press, I started with the biggest bit, a 1 3/8 inch Forstner bit, and used a couple of easy hold clamps to hold the piece in place and made my first hole. I was excited at this point, but also a little nervous about ruining the board, but no going back now, and on to the next holes. The drill press couldn't reach into the middle of the board, so I ended up just using my drill and the Forstner bit to drill those out. You could use the drill for all the holes, but the drill press just is so much faster. Now it's time for the medium-sized holes, or in this case 1 inch in diameter. And you might notice that the round is made up of several smaller pieces of wood all glued together. Well, I used those lines or those seams as a natural break and centered the holes on those lines. And then finally the small holes were 1/2 inch in diameter. I did do equal number of big, medium, and small holes. I think there was about 9 of each of them. Now it's time for carving. The previous day I tested out a ton of my saber-tooth carving burrs and found that the 3/8 inch dovetail bit worked the best for me to make the lines. So after a little bit more practice, I got started carving the lines down the seams. I wasn't going for like a perfectly straight line, or else I would have used my router to make these. More with the carving, I wanted an organic looking line, and I think it works great with my carving skills to stay on the organic side of carving. Now it's time for all the cross lines, but first a little bit more practice. Gotta make sure those lines are just right. Get everything situated, procrastinate a little bit, and maybe just practice a couple more times. But once I got started, I really did get the hang of it and just got into a rhythm and continued that throughout the rest of the piece. Once the lines were done, it was time to clean it up with a little bit of sanding, just get in those grooves and make sure there's no sharp edges anywhere. While I think it looks really awesome right now, it is kind of hard to see the texture, so I've been brainstorming the next step of this project. But first, I gotta show you my partner in crime, Awesome Oscar, who stayed out here with me this whole time carving this, and as you can tell, was a complete mess. But totally worth it to have him there with me. Well, after brainstorming, I decided that we needed to make those lines stand out. So I figured the best way to do that was with a little bit of color, or in this case, some black spray paint. So I went ahead and sprayed the entire piece black. And then sanded it off. And while this did leave the black in all the grooves of the lines, it did take several pieces of sandpaper and quite a bit of time to get it all off. But I think it's going to be worth it. After sanding, I'm really loving the look of this piece. It just shows all the carving pieces, but I still wanted to add a little bit more color to it to get the difference between the wood grain and the black there. So I went ahead and cleaned it up with some mineral spirits, and then I stained it in a custom mix of like natural and provincial stain, just a light tone to bring out the grain. And while this piece was looking super awesome, I didn't know if it could stand alone as just a wall art piece. So I decided to transform it into a shelf. And I just so happened to have another round laying around. So I cut off a piece of it, painted it black, and I'm going to use that as the shelf. And to hang this, I decided to put a keyhole slot on the back. Since it's round, it was kind of weird to line it up, but I used the natural seam and my square to make a line where we're going to put that keyhole. Then I drilled a pilot hole for it using a really small Forstner bit, and then lined up my router and cut a keyhole slot. A keyhole slot's nice for hanging things because the piece can sit flush up against the wall and doesn't stick out or hang at a diagonal. And the last step was to attach the shelf. I didn't think screws directly from the back were going to be enough, and I didn't really want big brackets on the front that you were going to see. So I decided to do both and use some small brackets on the front. I'm using this 2x4 here to help line it up flush, so it'll sit flush with the carving piece. Attach the bracket there, and then attach it to the carving piece. I used my square, again using those seam lines as a reference to make sure everything was going to be square and level once it was hung up. Added a couple more screws on the back for support. And ta-da! We have ourselves an awesome shelf. I love this carved texture and definitely see myself using it in the future on some furniture pieces. I hope you enjoyed this project as much as I did and that it inspires you to try power carving for yourself. And if you did enjoy this video, please be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more awesome DIY projects. Oh, and remember, build loud, build wild, and have an awesome day.